Greetings, fellow action figure connoisseurs, and welcome to another episode of Digital Caveman Presents Star Wars Wednesday. I, as always, am your host, the Digital Caveman, and today I will be presenting you with my top 10 Star Wars of 2023. Let's get into it! Here's my honorable mention for Star Wars 2023. The Black Series Imperial Officer Dark Times, as featured in the Disney Plus show Andor. And one thing I will say about this guy is he's not made for his cloak to come off. You can get it off. It is glued on the back and very slightly, and if you very carefully cut it with something super duper sharp, you can get it off. It doesn't leave much of a mark. You have to be really careful or you will poke holes in the cloak. Now, that being said, once you get that done and you pop the head off and remove the cloak, the neck looks really long. So had they made this officer where the cloak was supposed to be removed, then I think he would have made it in the actual list probably. But since they didn't, he just gets an honorable mention. The reason that he gets an honorable mention, I know why such a generic guy, you know. The look of this guy, it just really takes me back to that classic Imperial officer look as they did in A New Hope. It just looks very 70s, and I guess that has to do more with the head sculpt and stuff like that, rather than the overall look of the figure. But it really reminds me of that A New Hope aesthetic, and that's why he at least gets an honorable mention. Here's my number 10 Star Wars pick for the year. Omega, in her mercenary gear, as featured in the Disney Plus show The Bad Batch Season 2. And I have to say, I think they did a much better job on this figure than they did on the Season 1 version of Omega. In the Season 1 version, of course, you only get the one head with the necklace jewel thing that she wears on her head in the very first episode, and that's pretty much it. And also, this version not only comes with the ready-to-fire weapon, it also comes with the folded-up weapon that you can store on her back. And I have to say, you know, there's really not a lot of deco on the figure going on, but where they did put it mostly was in the head and face, and there is another portrait that comes with this figure of unhelmeted head. And overall I think they did just a really good job with this version of the character. So there she is, my friends, my number 10 Star Wars pick for 2023, Omega, Bad Batch Season 2 mercenary gear. Here is my number 9 Star Wars choice for the year, and it's the Black Series Episode 2 Mace Windu. And I'll go ahead and tell you guys, it's highly unlikely that I review a Mace Windu figure and he does not make top 10 for me, because I really like the character. I like the way he was portrayed. by Samuel L. Jackson. And you just take a look at this guy, and he is ready to over some parties. You know what I mean? He is ready to end this party, walk in a room, and just say, "This party's over." And of course, you can blank blank fill in the blanks, because every time he talks, I hear, blank blank from Mace Windu, because, he's just a bad blank blank. And the head sculpt on this one, I think, looks, even though it's the same sculpt as on the Clone Wars issue from this guy, the Walmart exclusive from the 2D animation, the finish, I guess, that they put on it, it's dulled down a lot. The other one was very shiny, and this one is not nearly as shiny as that one. And I think it just makes the sculpt look a lot better. And yeah, I know you guys saying, "Oh, you love Mace Windu, but it only comes in at number 9. Well, he probably would have come in a little higher, but there are some issues with the figure. The articulation maybe is not all that it could be. The cloak is definitely not all it could be. It's a mess, and I do need to do something to fix it, whether it's to wet it and see if I can get it to lay properly, or to replace it with a wired version. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. And also, he does not have a lightsaber hook, or, a little port, and his lightsaber doesn't have a peg on it to store when it's not ignited. So there's, just a few issues with this one that makes him much lower on the list than I would have really liked. But there he is, my friends. Number 9 for Star Wars, The Black Series, Episode 2, Mace Windu. My number 8 Star Wars pick for the year is the Black Series Walmart exclusive 2D animated Clone Wars ARC Trooper. And, just look at this guy and you can tell why he's on this top 10 list. And yes, he wasn't released this year, but I only got to review him this year because I found him really, really late last year. And it looks really good. And I only had room really for one trooper on the list. And this is the one that made the cut. I do like the mold that they used for this. The biggest issue I have with this one is that even though there is a head inside the helmet is not removable. So they glued the helmet to the head so that they didn't have to put any deco up under there. And from a cost saving standpoint, I understand that, but it's just a bit of a disappointment that you can't remove his bucket and, see which clone trooper is under there. But there he is, my friends, the number 8 pick for Star Wars, the Walmart exclusive Black Series 2D Clone Wars ARC Trooper. My friends, here's my number 7 Star Wars pick for the year, the Black Series Aayla Secura. And I don't know what it is about this character that I gravitate to. There's obvious things that you would think of, but that's not really it. The look of her is interesting, and I think they did nice on the deco. Even though there's not a lot of paint, most of the paint, it appears, is in the head and face. And I really like it. She does have good articulation. She does have up and down hinges in the wrist to help pose her with a lightsaber a little more properly than with just in and out hinges. Now, the figure could use double hinged elbows rather than hinge and swivel, but I've almost about given up for double hinged elbows in the Black Series. I think we're just going to get it here and there, and mostly just going to be single hinge with swivel. So there's that. And so really cool figure. Number 7 for the year, Black Series, Aayla Secura. My number 6 Star Wars pick for the year is the Black Series Cal Kestis, as featured in the video game Jedi Survivor. And even though I have not played the game, I did play Fallen Order a little bit, and I like the character. I like that it's actually based on an actor, so that at some point, if they want to use this character in live action, that they can do that. And this, I really like this look a lot better than the Fallen Order look. He's a little more seasoned looking, battle hardened maybe, and just looks like he's ready to face whatever is coming his way. And of course, he is accompanied by BD-1, his companion droid. And one of the things that I didn't like about this figure is in the previous, or the last release of Cal Kestis, which was the GameStop exclusive Gaming Greats Cal Kestis from Fallen Order. You know, he had a little slot on his overlay on the back where BD-1 could actually clip in and ride on his back. And this figure does not have that. And I really wish it did, so that, you know, he didn't have to be displayed standing on the floor next to him, but could be in the position, at least in Fallen Order, that you do see him in a lot. So there it is, my friends. Number 6 for Star Wars, Cal Kestis, Black Series Cal Kestis from Jedi Survivor. Coming in at number 5 for the year, Star Wars, the Black Series, Return of the Jedi, 40th anniversary carded, retro carded, Darth Vader, and I call this the final duel Darth Vader. And as much as I love Darth Vader, it did pain me to put him only at number 5. There were a few little issues with the figure. There's a little too much cape to begin with, and that may not end up being a problem, because I think I'm going to take this cape and fix it where I can put a wire in it so that it's not quite so long. And I may do that with the cloth underlay as well, if I can, because it doesn't quite fit up under the armor like it should. It does stick out at the shoulders, so there are some drawbacks. The main drawback for me is, while this is probably one of the best, if not the best looking Darth Vader that Hasbro has produced for the Black Series, the helmet, well, the mask, not really the helmet. The helmet fits and works like it's supposed to. The mask, I don't know if it's the type of plastic used for it where it's a little bit soft, but on the collar there's 2 spots where the mask is supposed to tab in and it's supposed to hold in place, and it doesn't quite work as designed. So you have to be really, really careful handling the head unless you want to be adjusting the mask a lot. Now, that being said, under the mask, the unmasked head looks really fantastic, and they put a lot of paint apps in here. At least it feels like they put a lot of paint apps in here and a lot of detail in the sculpt, and it's really, it looks really, really good to me. Now, once you get the mask and the helmet on and straightened up and everything, it's, again, one of the best looking, if not the best looking Darth Vader that Hasbro has produced for the Black Series. Some other features I liked about it, the fact that, you know, the mask is in 3 pieces. It has the collar, it has the mask, and it has the helmet, just like it did in the movie. His right arm is removable, not his arm, but his forearm. His right arm is removable, and they included an extra piece on there for when Luke cuts his hand off during their final duel there in the Death Star 2 in the Emperor's throne room. And I just think, you know, there may not be a whole lot of paint apps and stuff going on this figure, but what there is really, for this price point, quite fantastic. You got lots of paint apps on the mask, chest and belt, and the armor bits where necessary, and you know, the lightsabers. They've improved the peg system that they use for the lightsabers. The peg is a much thicker piece, and they've kind of removed that part where the blade clips in. It just fits in tightly now, and it's held in place by friction, and they use that on this figure. And I'm glad that they're starting to move away from that really thin peg, because they can be issues. But here, I've rambled on long enough about this one. Number 5 on my list, Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader, Final Duel, Return of the Jedi 40th Anniversary Retro Card. My number 4 Star Wars pick for the year is the Black Series Chrysanthemum, as featured in the Disney Plus show, The Book of Boba Fett. And while I'm not a huge fan of that show, there were some bright points, one of them being the appearance of Chrysanthemum. And I really like the look of this figure, the washes that they did on him and on his armor. And, you know, he has pretty limited articulation in places because of the fur sculpt. And, you know, not that he really has to do a lot of moving around, because, you know, he's a pretty bad dude, or pretty bad Wookiee. Now, the one thing that I really didn't like about this figure is his gun. He can't really hold it all that well in order to make it look like he's shooting it, unless he's doing it one-handed, and even then, it is a bit of a pain to deal with. But there he is, number 4, my friends, for Star Wars this year. Black Series Chrysanthemum, as featured in the Book of Boba Fett. My friends, the number 3 Star Wars pick of the year is the Return of the Jedi 40th Anniversary Retro Carded R2-D2. And while I feel that this particular figure, well, not necessarily the figure, but the accessories rather, and maybe partially the figure, but mostly the accessories, this R2 feels more like it should have been an Empire Strikes Back 40th Anniversary release rather than Return of the Jedi. And the reason I say that is the one glaring omission for Return of the Jedi that R2-D2 does not have. And that is an insert or compartment or whatever for Luke's lightsaber. And, you know, I realize a spring launching missile type action thing is never going to happen. I really wouldn't want that anyway. But at least, you know, the sections you can pull off of the dome, the blue sections you can pull off the dome, at least one of them should have had like an insert of Luke's lightsaber sticking out. And I kind of understand why they didn't do that with this release, because one of the big features that they were touting with this release is the ability to store all of his extra pieces on the inside where the dome pulls up. You can see I've got the dome pulled up right there, so you can see that. But the ability to store all those in there, and Luke's lightsaber really wouldn't have fit in there. But again, they could have just made it a loose piece. So I feel like at a later date they're going to give us another issue of R2-D2, but this time he's going to come with Luke's lightsaber where it can stick in his dome. But other than that, it's fantastic to finally get a Black Series R2-D2 that is in scale, in actual scale with the rest of the figures in the line, rather than the reissue after reissue after reissue of that very first Black Series R2-D2, who was just a bit too small. Now, I will say one thing about this. Even though he has great articulation, he has storage for all of his gadgets and gizmos. Be very careful putting those in the slots on the inside, because sometimes they will fall out and you might have to get a pair of tweezers or something like that to work them out, because they will fall down in between where the insert pulls out and the inside of the body, and can be a bit of a pain to remove. And that's maybe why he didn't get a little higher on the list, the lightsaber missing, with this being, you know, packaged as a Return of the Jedi R2-D2. But that's it. Number 3, my friends, for Star Wars of the Year, Black Series retro carded Return of the Jedi 40th Anniversary R2-D2. We're almost there, my friends, but right now we're at my number 2 Star Wars pick for the year. The Target exclusive Black Series Cad Bane versus Cobb Vanth. And I have to tell you that I was very, very tempted by the Boba Fett armor, Cobb, and in the end I decided not to, because he didn't really keep the armor very long, just really that one episode of The Mandalorian, and I wanted a more regular look for him. And even though I know this is probably pretty much the same exact figure, just without the Boba Fett pieces, I really think this fits the character a lot better. And the Cad Bane that comes with it, you know, he really looks like that live action version that we got in the Book of Boba Fett, which, you know, it's growing on me, that particular look. I think, you know, I'm much more used to the look he had in Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, and I'm just kind of amazed that, you know, he actually lived, you know, past Return of the Jedi even. And I think he has a bit more robot parts. Now he's missing like his ankle jets in this version, so at some point I guess he quit using them, or they just decided it wasn't a good fit for the live action look of the character. But either way, I like this. This is a great, great set. And the fact that Cad's blasters have blast effects for them, and just the sculpts on both of these guys is really, really good. And I think the deco is really good. And they look a lot like the character. I ain't gonna say they look exactly alike. Well, Cad Bane maybe does, but Cobb Vanth doesn't quite completely look like Timothy Olyphant, and that's a shame. But it's still a great rendition of the character, and it's almost there. And I don't know, I don't think it's the sculpt as much as it is the deco that throws it off just a tad, and that's all it is, really, just a very small amount that it's thrown off. So again, I think it's more deco than sculpt. But again, this is a very good set, and if you're a Star Wars fan, whether you're a fan of Book of Boba Fett or not, these action figures are really good. And I am glad that I waited and didn't pick up the other Cobb Vanth. Of course, I've seen him floating around on clearance now online, so I may go ahead and pick that one up too at some point. But there it is, my friends. My number 2 Star Wars pick for the year, for 2023. The Target exclusive Black Series 2-pack Cad Bane versus Cobb Vanth. My friends, we have finally arrived at the moment you have all been waiting for. My number 1 Star Wars pick for 2023 is the Clone Wars Black Series Darth Maul, or just Maul. And I really like, this is probably my favorite version of the character as he appeared toward the end of the Clone Wars, and it's just great. Lots of deco on it, and I know there's some reuse from that publishing series Darth Maul, like the upper torso and probably the head as well, which I don't have that one, but it really works with the overlay for the chest and just the rest of it. It really takes me to that Clone Wars Darth Maul, and that is really my favorite and probably the best version of the character, in my opinion. Your mileage, of course, on that may vary. Now, there are a few minor issues with this guy, and one of them being the lightsaber. As you can see, it's clipped in his belt, and I'm sure it's show accurate where the clip is, but because it's there, you kind of have to do it at an angle like it is, and I don't particularly care for that. The lightsaber pieces, while they fit together tightly, if you accidentally plug it in wrong, the blade no longer fits in very well. So there is that. But other than that, it's a fantastic figure, and again, my favorite version of this character. And at some point, I hope they either reissue or make a whole new Ahsoka from that last season of the Clone Wars to go with this one. I know they did a release of her in that Mandalorian style suit that she wore in those last few episodes, but I would really like to see a more updated version of that figure. So if they reissue it, that's fine. It would be much better if they just updated it and then put it out. But that's just my opinion. There is, my friends, my number 1 choice of Star Wars for 2023, the Black Series Darth Maul, or Maul, from the Clone Wars. That completes my Star Wars Top 10 of 2023. I hope that you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it. Only support from viewers like you make this programming possible. Each view does count, and I do appreciate each and every single view that I receive. Thank you, and thank you so very, very much for supporting this channel through viewing. Comment below, like, share, subscribe if you'd like to see more reviews or just help the channel out further, or both, that's even better. And don't forget to ding that bell so that in the future you will be notified as my new content becomes available. That's a wrap, folks. I'll see you next time.